I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and um, today's topic is pain as a catalyst for change, and we're going to get to look into why we often wait until something is absolutely unbearable before we make the changes that will improve our experience of living. But before we get started, let's just take a few minutes to get settled in and present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp, pure oxygen just flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs. And as you exhale, exhale any negativity, any toxicity, any stress and tension. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light just lighting you up from the inside out, electrifying your electrons and molecules and connecting you with the world beyond. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together and really softly rub your fingers against your palms and feel how delicious that sensation is. And welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to be here with you this morning. Maggie is delighted to be here as well. Right, Maggie? Say hi. Anyway, there she goes. So let's talk about pain as a catalyst for change. I find it really interesting that that we tolerate so many circumstances in our lives that are unpleasant. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. Great to have you here. We're talking about pain as a catalyst for change. And I find it really, really interesting to notice that we will endure so much discomfort and suffering and struggle rather than change, until it gets to a point that it's 100% utterly unbearable. Good morning, Tammy. um, welcome to. It's great to have you here, Maggie's pleased to have you here too. Um, so, what is it that is behind that dynamic of needing to suffer so much before we make a change? And I'm thinking, the struggle we know or the circumstances we know is maybe um, less frightening than the circumstances we don't, um, and that fear of the unknown or of what the changes will entail can be so daunting that we actually allow ourselves to get to a point of deep, deep despair and struggle before we're willing to make a change. Just, like what degree of discomfort do we need before we'll allow ourselves to improve our circumstances, to allow ourselves to live in a way that feels better, or to make a simple, oftentimes these changes are simple changes, but it's amazing to me how life will bring our lessons to us, right? Life brings our lessons to us first in a whisper, like in terms of the kinds of things that we need to do to nurture our soul, for instance. So it might come first as a whisper. And if we don't pay attention, that voice gets louder and louder and louder when there's certain things that need to change in life. Okay. When we're really called. And if we ignore that, then not only does I'm not even necessarily referring to the inner voice, but we can have circumstances in life that indicate the need for a change. And those circumstances will often present themselves first as a gentle indicator, as a good morning, Dido. Welcome. Great to have you here. Um, the warnings, so to speak, if we want to talk about them as warnings, may present themselves gently at first, and if we don't pay attention, then they get less gentle until finally we can end up in a really dire circumstance if we ignore the warnings that we are giving ourselves. And I'll just go back to um, this past year as I was closing out the year with my coaching group. I was getting a very persistent message that I really need a break. I really need a break. And if I hadn't paid attention to it, I'm quite certain, because in the past, when I've not paid attention to things like that, I've gotten sick and ended up, being flattened for an extended period of time. And in this case, I honored that I needed a break. And the thing is that I was able to realize, and I think this is a cultivated listening, that I was able to realize that that this was urgent. It can be quiet and urgent at the same time. It doesn't have to be, ouch, Maggie, stop. She's nipping me. She doesn't like me talking to other people. I don't really understand. I'm still learning bird. Anyway, it's so what I notice is that as I have listened more, I create less pain for myself and less drama. And what I want to look at is, how much pain do we have to endure before we make a change? How much suffering do we have to have before we just give ourselves permission? So this is often what it's about, I think, is like a sense of self-reverence or self-love, to be able to give ourselves permission to um, to make the choices that support us. And those choices may be choices to shift our way of thinking. They may be choices to shift our behaviors. They may be choices to shift our relationships. But the interesting thing is that where we could recognize discomfort, um, and see that as a contrast, and I'm talking like mild discomfort, where we could take a hint from mild discomfort, or recognizing a preference for something else other than the way that things are in a moment. If we could recognize the mild discomfort and move from that, before it, Maggie, no, Maggie, no. Hey, gentle, no biting, no biting. Time out, buddy. Sorry, guys. This is how we play, right? Time out, Maggie. Time out. Okay. So, good girl. Okay. So, maybe we can do something like that for ourselves too, is give ourselves a timeout, where we actually can presence ourselves to the discomfort before it becomes excruciating, before it becomes extreme, before it's so radical that we kind of give ourselves no choice. And I wonder if you have noticed in your own life where you get messages around discomfort. We'll call it feedback, and maybe just sort of push it off. Like if you're feeling overworked, if you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling upset, if you're feeling angry, um, to rather than ignoring that, maybe to look at, well, what is available to me here? What kind of shift can I make in myself or my circumstances that will better support me, and do this before we get to the place of extreme angst. Because what happens is that's there's a consequence to that. The longer we ignore the situations that are distressing to us, um, and suffer more and more pain, the more extreme the consequences are, the more extreme the recovery, the more extreme the drama, the more extreme the suffering. Hello, Andrea. Welcome. Great to have you here. So I'm wondering, what does it take to pay attention to ourselves, calling to ourselves for change? What does it take? I'm wondering if it takes self-esteem and self-love, self-acknowledgement to recognize one's needs, to recognize when something is amiss, to recognize when something is awry. Um, we've talked about this before, but when we meet somebody new, we get a gut reaction to that person, and then sometimes we will override that intuition. And I know that this was sort of a dynamic for me in the past with people. I would want to give them the benefit of the doubt, so I would override my own intuition, my own knowing, and as a result I would get myself into circumstances that often became untenable. and and then extricating myself from that situation was a whole lot harder than if I had honored my knowing ahead of time in the very beginning. And I think that this is the same sort of situation with experiencing discomfort and pain, is not listening to ourselves. And I I think it also has to do with maybe putting other people first, and believing that our commitments to others are more important somehow than our commitments to ourselves. Um, I think that there's a social value somehow to pushing ourselves, oftentimes beyond our limits. And um, I believe that what happens sometimes is that we push ourselves beyond our limits, and then because we haven't listened to our own cries for help, what happens is we can end up very, very ill, or we can have an accident, or we can have circumstances that finally give us the thing that we really needed. Because again, life happens, in my hypothesis anyway, and I invite you to try it on. Life happens for us and through us rather than to us. So if life is happening for me, then ultimately that break that is maybe, something like I end up breaking a leg and can't keep running around as crazy as I was, because I wasn't paying attention. Good morning, Isabel. Great to have you here. Good morning. Um, so we're talking about how we often need to get to a place of extreme pain in order to maybe face the fear of change, the fear of the unknown that change might bring, or the fear of the disruption that it might bring. Because maybe, certainly some change is very disruptive, and maybe it's a matter of weighing that disruption against the potential, the experience of the pain. Like, maybe it's easier not to change sometimes, um, but then the situation just accelerates and gets more and more extreme. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it, and I imagine if it, looking in our own lives, you can see that in your life too, where it took pain to be able to justify change. So I was talking to a client the other day, and talking about when a little bit about my past. So a good portion of my life, or what was for a very large portion of my life, I really thought about suicide on a daily basis. I woke up and went to sleep thinking, wanting to die, wishing to die, because I was in so much pain, emotional pain. And it wasn't until I finally decided that I was going to commit suicide, and I was 40 at the time. And I decided where I was going to kill myself. I was going to go into, I had a storage unit at the time, and I was going to um, take some pills or something, and go into my storage unit. And when I think in that moment of extreme pain, like really realizing that I was done, I was done, that I had a moment of grace to be able to step back and say, girl, you need some help here. You need some help. And it was that extreme of facing the the ultimate escape from the pain that I was feeling, that allowed me to give myself permission to follow my heart and to do what I wanted to do in life. Because that that moment let me know that I was already dead. Like, I really was kind of the walking dead, and here I was, so miserable that I was willing to die rather than continue the way that I was going. And as a result of that, I gave myself permission to go back to art school. I got some counseling. I went back to art school. I went to art school, and I started putting myself back together. And it was a little bit of it wasn't an easy, short road to get myself back, but I was doing something that was feeding my spirit, and um, and it opened doors for me and put me on the path to where I am now. Which, like, all these things, as you look back in retrospect, all these things fit together. Isabel says, yes, I experienced pain in my life many times. and I from what you've shared, Isabel, I'm aware of that. And um, I think that life is, it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum of experience that includes all the flavors, right? All the emotions, all the flavors, the pain, the pleasure, the sadness, the joy. Um, if it were all if it were all sunshine and roses, that sunshine and roses wouldn't be so bright, right? So we experience life through contrast, and and sometimes it truly does feel unbearable. And I'm wondering, Isabel, when you've experienced that pain in your life, if it was a catalyst for change for you, like what as a result of that pain, what have you allowed yourself that you wouldn't allow yourself before experiencing that pain? Because what I notice is that the more we recognize our inner voice, our inner calling, that the balance of pain shifts pretty dramatically. And what was interesting is that I was speaking with this person, and they had it all. They had, from the outside, they had a company, they had money, they had a marriage, they had a home, that all, on the outside, all of this was perfect. And they found themselves in this deep, deep despair, saying, this is not my life. This is not the life I want. This isn't me. And the agony of that, just being um, being brought to tears, and deep upset. Maggie, no. Maggie, no. Over, no. Over the lack of personal purpose. And Isabel says, I got to appreciate and realized I was the one to change. That's the lesson. That's the brilliance, is that it's always us that gets to change, because circumstances are what they are. Other people are what they are. And the one thing that we do have, the ultimate capacity to control, if you want to even call it control. I'm not gonna I don't want to focus on that word of control, but the one thing that we do have the capacity to change is ourselves. And as we ourselves change and evolve and transform, what happens is that our relationships change and transform. They have to, because we're different. Our circumstances change and transform. They have to, because we're different. So we interact with things differently. And the outcomes as a result of us interacting with things differently, our outcomes also shift and change. And so, excuse me. So this motivation to change is often spurred by pain, because when things are easy, we're not necessarily motivated to make them be different. The thing that I'm noticing, and the thing that I encourage us all to cultivate, is listening to that inner voice. There's a woman named Terry Angel on Enlightened World Network, and you may be familiar with her. She's quite remarkable. And she is listening to her voice. She had this voice that told her that it was time for her to get on the road and essentially do a pilgrimage. And she is following that voice. Now, I think it's really remarkable. She had this clear message and she followed it, and she didn't have to suffer and struggle on the way to following it. And I think that, I mean, some people, I look at it, look at her and this transformation that she's made, and I'm just in awe that she has that clarity. And Isabel says, I used to be suicidal for many years too, and tried it one time. And Isabel also says, I watched Terry Angel also. So, Isabel, the fact that you tried it and you're still here, I want to really acknowledge you. I know the degree of pain that we can suffer. And I know how sometimes it can be unbearable. And I can say that I'm really glad you're still here. And and I thank you for being so authentic and open to share that. And it takes a lot of strength to go through an experience that extreme and to come back. And I honor you for that. And I know that Rosalind says, applying to Isabel, I'm happy to have you still here with us, Isabel, and glad Mira is still here with us. Thank you. Thank you. I was a very, very different person back then. And I was very much a person who was at the effect of the world. And I truly, deeply believe, and Isabel, I hope that this is so for you, that you have connected more deeply with yourself, your core self, and have honored your soul's calling and your heart's calling. And we're really glad you're still here. And I can tell you that I, having gone through that time and facing death, gave me the freedom. I gave myself permission to live, the life that I wanted to live. Isabel says, exactly, that's the main lesson. Yes, because we came here to live the lives that we came here to live. We didn't come here to fulfill somebody else's expectations. We came here with a song in our heart that we came to sing. I really, really, really believe that. And when you're so unhappy that you're willing to die, there's what else can you find the place of permission to give yourself the life that you came for. So I know a bunch of people who have committed suicide, and I understand it. I understand it. And I know that through this time of COVID, that even more people consider suicide than did prior to COVID, with the isolation and the challenges and the deep tragedies that so many people are suffering. And I just want to say that I hope that that pain can be used by people to allow themselves permission to create a life that really resonates with their heart, and to not be focused on what the world says you should be or you should do, but to really listen to the whisperings, the songs, the the outpouring of your heart, and follow that, because that's what you came for. And that's what the world needs now more than anything, is for us to be really, really expressing what we came here to express. So please, if you're experiencing pain, find a way to use it to forward yourself, to forward your life, and know that you can allow that pain, as tragic as it is, to be a gift. So many people have done so many magnificent things as a result of unbearable pain. I just wish for us that we can make these wonderful transformations without having such deep suffering. And yeah, it's going through the crucible, right? It's going through the fire that hones us and refines us. And I think that it's a profound catalyst for learning how to perhaps think differently about things, rather than being subject to the pain. We have the ability to look for the gift in it. So Isabel says, thank you. Got to go working. Love your wisdom. Thank you, Isabel. And great that you've got work to go to. And thank you for being here. And really, really, I honor you for your strength and courage. And strength and courage that all of us are evidencing in our lives through these very crazy and difficult times, or challenging times, shall we say. Rosalind says, I love you all. I love our conversations with Mira. I love you, Maggie Poo. She's going to end up being Maggie Poo now, I think, Rosalind. Anyway, I just thank you all for being here and joining me. It's wonderful, wonderful to be spending this time with you. And I send lots of love and faith. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. This is Maggie. And we come to you each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And I hope to see you again here really soon, maybe even tomorrow. And until then, be gentle with you. Lots of love.